Is reading the entire Bible in 1 year really worth it? Well, that's the question we're asking today on Whiskey and the Writings. Thanks for joining us. Pour your drink. Let's dive in. All right, folks, thanks for joining me. I've got my Knob Creek here. This is one we've been drinking for the past little while, so you might have seen this on the show before. I love Knob Creek. It is such a great mixer drink, but it's also really enjoyable, neat, just like we're drinking it here today. Maybe one of these episodes, I'll make one of my favorite old fashions, and we'll do just a special on that. But for now, I love drinking Knob Creek, and this is a 9-year. It's a Kentucky Straight Bourbon, and so whatever you've got in front of you, we've got a great discussion today. And so pour your drink and let's take a sip. Okay, everybody, is reading the Bible in 1 year really worth it? All right. I have been a Christian for my entire adult life. Became a Christian when I was 15. And this has been one thing that I've heard all throughout my Christian journey is the value and importance and the stress, sometimes it feels like, to read the entire Bible in 1 year. There are whole marketing endeavors put together to get people to read the Bible through a year. Almost any Bible app or any study has some form of a read the Bible in a year type mentality. And so we're asking this question. I know we're well into the year, but it's still something that all throughout the year I talk to people that they try to pick up and do for whatever reason. I've talked to people that desire to read the Bible in the year because they've never done it. They've never read the entire Bible, and so they feel like they've got to pursue that as a task to be completed for their own internal purposes, for whatever motivation that is. There are people out there that certainly feel the pressure that if they haven't read the entire Bible, that somehow they're maybe less Christian or less spiritual as some of the people that they admire and look up to. But whatever the reason, I'm going to give you today 3 reasons why it's not a good idea to read the entire Bible in 1 year. And then I'm going to give you 1 reason why maybe you should. Maybe you should. So that's what we're doing today. It's going to be a simple conversation, and yet one some of you may not like to hear, and that's okay too. I have this discussion with a good friend of mine, Colby, who he and I talk quite a bit, and he and I have kind of gone back and forth on this read the Bible in a year, and even my own wife, she kind of challenges me on these thoughts too. But I'm just going to throw out there what I think. If someone were to ask me, Joe, is it a good idea to do a Bible in the year plan? If you were to boil me down to a yes or no answer, I'd probably say no. I'd probably say no, it's not a good idea. And there's a number of reasons why I land on that answer of no. I don't think it's a good idea, nor do I think it's generally helpful for any Christian to read the Bible in a year. And there's a couple reasons why, and that's what I want to explore with you here, because I think through these reasons, you'll discover that at least for me, I think there's more valuable ways to engage with an ancient text like the Bible. And here's the first reason. The first reason is that the Bible isn't meant to be conquered in the sense of like, check the box, I did it. And my problem with Bible in the year things, I want to say people, but like just in general, the concept of a Bible in the year is that it infers within it this reality of like, this is something that I have to like get it done, or it's a task that I've got to accomplish in order to get something else. And when I talk to people that are in the midst of Bible of the Year plans that they're reading, lots of times they're discouraged. They're not encouraged they're frustrated. They're not satisfied. They're left with more questions, not leaving with more answers. And for all of those reasons, my challenge is why? Why put yourself through that? There's no reason. And so there's this reality of like, it's not something, we don't read the Bible so that we can check a box. We read the Bible because it's informative in our spiritual journey. The information it contains provides us the wisdom of how to actually live out this Christ-like, Christ-centered life that we are endeavoring to live. And so I don't think it's actually helpful for a Christian to read the Bible in the year, because it can treat it as a task you accomplish. And that's hard for us, at least as Americans, because we're task people. We live by accomplishing tasks, by conquering things, by overcoming things, by an entrepreneurial spirit that we have to be people that get things done. And that's just not the way the Bible was written, to be consumed in a way like we just finished the book and now we can set it aside. And maybe you're not consciously doing that, but subconsciously, I think there's an inference here that when we treat it like a task to be checked off, we are subconsciously training ourselves to treat the Bible like something we can just pick up and then set aside. And I don't think that's helpful. The Bible should be something that we meditate on, that we take our time with. We enjoy it like a fine glass of whiskey, where we sip and we contemplate and we think and we meditate. Bible in the year plans are a dime a dozen, and they're designed to get you through the text, not to have you be formed by the text. Okay? Do you see the distinction here? There's a difference between getting through the text versus being formed by the text. And this is what this literature is aimed to do. This is where the inspiration of the text comes into play. It is inspired by God, that by its words, it forms us into the people that He created us to be. And so that's the desire, that's the intent. So that's number one. Let's set aside the notion that this is something that we can treat like a to-do list of things that we can check off, that we did our part and now we can set it aside. Okay. Second reason is that when I've talked to people that are moving through Bible in the year plans, it creates unrealistic expectations that make the Bible something that's frustrating to read versus enjoyable. Okay. So there are disciplines in our life, for sure, that we need to do even though we don't like to do it, because it creates within us habits. It creates behavioral changes within us. Absolutely. I'm not sure, and maybe in the comments you can convince me otherwise, but I'm not sure that the Bible, treating the Bible that way is helpful, because when I talk to people that are in the progress of trying to get through the Bible in a year, they're frustrated with it. And they're not frustrated because of the information they're reading, although that's some of the truth, and we can get to that in a second. They're frustrated because they have an expectation to accomplish something, and if they don't, they fall behind. And when they fall behind, they get frustrated at themselves. They feel like they've let themselves down. They feel like they've let God down because they didn't get their reading in, and then a week goes by and now they're a week behind. And how in the world are they going to catch up now? It's hard enough to get the daily readings in for them to get to the next check. And so there's this pressure that is inherently built with this expectation that you got to get through this. And again, I don't think that's God putting that on us. In fact, I know it's not. Nowhere does God expect you to read the entire Bible in a year. Does He want you to read the entire Bible? Yeah, it's wisdom literature. It's the thing that's actually going to speak into your life, that's going to bring transformation. But the expectation that you've just got to get this done in a year is an expectation you have of yourself. And oftentimes you'll let yourself down, especially when you get into like Leviticus and Deuteronomy's not that bad, but Numbers and these kind of like Torah writings. It gets complicated. It gets difficult, hard to read. And these law codes are not easy to read. The genealogies are not easy to read. And we just get frustrated. And oftentimes what we do is we cheat. I mean, let's be honest. Those of you in the room that are watching this, if you've done the Bible in the Year plan and you've actually gotten through it, how many of you cheated when it got to genealogies? Raise your hand. And when I say cheated, I mean you just skimmed it. You just jumped over it. Right. This happens all the time. And so it's actually not being helpful. It's an unrealistic ask of yourself that God didn't ask you to do. And it's putting you in a position that you're now becoming frustrated with yourself because you're not living up to the task that you've self-created. It's not helpful. So if you're in that place right now and you are frustrated and you've been trying it, you started in January, and whatever month you're listening to this, you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly where I'm at. Can I just give you permission to stop? Just stop. You're not helping. You're not doing anything. Just stop. Put the Bible in a Year plan away and learn to open up the Bible for yourself in your own pace and in your own timing. So that's number 2. The third reason why I don't think it's helpful is because oftentimes you'll come to places when you read the text that you'll have more questions than answers. And the Bible in a Year plan treats those questions like something you just got to work, you got to move on, because tomorrow there's a new set of texts. And if you sit on this group of text over here that you have questions about, and you know that tomorrow you're going to move over here, what do you do with these questions? Well, oftentimes you just set them aside, or you forget about them, or you just go, you know what, I don't have the capacity to deal with it, and you give up on them. And that is a tragedy. Y'all, you should be asking questions, reading slowly to ask the questions, to investigate, to let these words soak into your heart and mind. They should never escape you. They should be sitting in you. And too often when we're just pushing every single day to get the text done, you don't leave space for you to actually wrestle with the text. And that's not helpful. That's not helpful towards your spiritual formation. It's only going to be burdensome, like we talked about already. And so I just, when I talk to people and they're in the midst of this, and I ask questions about, what'd you think about this story? What'd you think about this situation that happened? How did that make you feel? Oftentimes, they don't even know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Didn't you read that? And they're like, yeah, I read that a month ago. I don't even remember. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? We don't remember when we're just trying to push through the text. It's not meant to be read that way. So those are my 3 reasons on why the reading in the Bible, the entire Bible in a year, is no, it's not a good idea. Okay. So that's my take on that. All right. Now I did promise one reason why you should maybe read the Bible in the year. And this one reason actually was inspired by my wife. If you've met my wife, she is full of wisdom and full of insight, and constantly pushes me to think beyond my own opinions, which all of this is an opinion. Look, if you come from a tradition where reading the Bible in the year, you've been doing it every year, kudos to you, man. Keep going. This is my opinion, and because I've experienced far too many people burning out on reading the Bible versus actually falling in love with it. So that's to say that there is, there's no exception to my rules, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And this comes from my wife. So my wife read the Bible in the year a couple years ago, and she thoroughly enjoyed it. And this is what she challenged me with. And all this you're going to see, Joe, listen to your wife more. Yeah, I know that. That's all true. We all know that. But here was her encouragement. She said this was her experience reading the entire Bible in the year. It allowed her to see a grand narrative to the whole scope of Scripture. And I think if that's your takeaway, that might be a good reason to read the entire Bible in a year versus just picking in, picking out, jumping in here, jumping in there, choosing this, choosing that. When you can wrap your mind around the totality of the Scriptures and how it all is pointing to a person named Jesus, and out of that working of Jesus is the the actions that we take within our world today. When we see the scope of God working through the scriptures, and we can go, oh, I see the big picture. We call this the meta narrative, which is the overarching narrative of any given subject. And when and if you are coming away from reading the Bible in a year with that perspective, that you can step back from a 30,000-foot view and go, oh, I see. Okay, you might get me on that one. That might be a good reason to read the Bible an entire year. But that's probably my only exception. Otherwise, I pretty much steer away from it personally. I've read the entire Bible. I've never done a Bible in the year, and I probably never will, because I want to take my time with God's word. I want to work through it meticulously. I want to stay in a gospel for months and soak in the stories about Jesus and the words of Jesus. I want to listen to the words of Paul and just meditate on what he meant and why he said what he said and who he was talking to. I want to think about the stories in the Old Testament and how these key characters and figures either emulated what God wanted in the earth or didn't, and how I can learn from their stories and see how their stories are actually my story, and how I can then with that information begin to reinterpret or re-engage my story through the lens of these people that we read in the Old Testament. All of that is formative for me, and it can be formative for you. And so is reading the entire Bible in a year a good idea? I say no, but there are exceptions to that. Thank you for joining me on Whiskey and the Writings. It was a short but sweet one. I hope if this was encouraging to you or helpful to you in any way, that you might say something about that online, share the video, share it with a friend that you might think is struggling through this concept of the reading the entire Bible in the year. But any other love that you can give, if you want to engage in your comments, listen, here's the thing. I'm going to challenge you right now. If you've read the entire Bible in a year, and you've done it within the past 5 years, I'm talking about like 20 years ago you did it. Let's say in the past 5 years you did that, and it was helpful to you, would you jump into the comments and share your story? Because I would love to hear that story. Maybe I'm too skeptical of it all, but I'd love to hear some feedback and some challenges to the assumptions I'm making about what it means to read the Bible in a year. So all that to say, thank you for joining me on Whiskey and the Writing. It's always a pleasure having a drink with you, and we'll see you next week.